Hi everybody in Psych 267 Forensic Psychology. Today's topic is Chapter 15 and Chapter 16, Legal Issues and then Profiling. I would highly recommend that you watch the profiling video within the module for this week. If we were meeting in class together, that is exactly what we would be doing when we cover that topic. So remember, you're supposed to be working on the online Canvas assignments from the John Douglas book about profiling, as well as working on your profile, because that will be part of the final exam once everybody turns them in by April 27th. How's that for pressure? Anyway, let's get started. Chapter 15, Legal Issues. Detainment, competency, and insanity. The first thing we need to talk about is this. Can you ever be locked up against your will when you have never even committed a crime? The answer is yes. In Arizona, there is a law that pertains to that, and there are 4 subsections. You don't need to know the numbers, like 36501 subsection 5. Just know what they are. First one, danger to others. Even if you have not hurt anyone, dangerous words, even in print or on social media or that you say to people, you can be locked up against your will until you can be evaluated for dangerousness. Same thing with danger to self. Is there good reason to believe that you're going to hurt yourself? You posted something on social media, or you wrote something or said something, you could be locked up until you're evaluated. Not usually in a jail, that would be unusual. More typically in a hospital or some sort of treatment center type of setting. And yes, you might meet someone like me, a psychologist or psychiatrist, who would do the evaluation. The other 2 types, gravely disabled. It could be a family member who reports that you are deteriorating so much that you can't take care of yourself. Think elderly people. There often comes a point where they're not doing the appropriate self-care necessary to stay healthy and well, or maybe even dangerous things. And then the 4th one, persistently or acutely disabled. What that means is a person who needs treatment forced upon him or her. Think schizophrenia or even bipolar disorder, because sometimes people become so incapacitated mentally or physically that they need treatment forced on them. So those are the 4 reasons why a person could be locked up against his or her will, even if no crime is committed. Typically, there's a court hearing that happens within a day or 2, or possibly 3, where the judge will determine whether you still need to remain detained in one of those types of settings. A Supreme Court case. This is also in the module for this week. Ricky Wyatt in 1970, that was a lot of decades ago, huh? His aunt raised him and couldn't control him, put him in a mental hospital where she had coincidentally worked, and they wouldn't give her any information. Not let him talk to her, not let her know how he was doing or when he might be released. She sued, and it went all the way to the US Supreme Court, and she won the lawsuit. And now, if someone is locked up against their will, they are allowed communication with people on the outside. They're allowed, 3 meals a day, a place to sleep, a treatment plan, medicine, counseling, all the basic necessities of getting help. And there has to be records kept on what is being done and communicated to family, especially if it's a juvenile. So if you look in the module, you will see the obituary for Ricky Wyatt. He died not too long ago, and he was in his 50s. So I guess he did make it out of childhood okay. Next topic. If you do get arrested for a crime, one thing that might be questioned is competency. In the United States, you have the right to defend yourself, and you have the right to an attorney to help you defend yourself. But think about a young child or an elderly person, maybe can't even communicate with an attorney well enough to proceed with a court hearing. So you have to be able to at least aid in your own defense, even with an attorney. If your attorney questions your competency, they might contact someone like me, a psychologist or a psychiatrist who is familiar with how these things work and has training in it, a doctoral level person, and we evaluate competency. We make a recommendation to the judge that's one of three things. Either the person is competent, no problem, he or she can defend themselves with an attorney, or not competent and they will not be competent within the time allowed by statute, no matter what is done. Medicine, counseling, education, nothing's going to help. For adults, that time frame is 21 months, and for juveniles, it's 8 months. It's called being restored to competency. Is that even possible? It depends on the person. Sometimes it's easy, get you back on medicine, or teach you the things that you don't understand about your rights or the court system. But other times, there's really no hope that it's going to change within those time frames. So, the judge can either see you as competent, not competent, or the third option, not competent but restorable. That word sounds kind of funny when we're talking about kids because usually they were never competent in the first place. Restore means to put it back the way it was. So sometimes we say competency educated, but restorable is still the legal word. Next thing. Next page, I should say. So, if the judge finds a person, a defendant, to be incompetent, there are three possible scenarios. One, they will just release you and say, well, that's it, we're not filing any charges. That is called without prejudice. I almost said that backwards. You are being released or the charges are dropped without prejudice. That means that there's no charges against you anymore. They could make you go through a competency education program like we talked about, or hospitalize you, or make you take medicines. That's part of trying to restore you. But if the person is not restorable, that's what the judge decides, based on the evaluation, they could just release you and drop the charges, like we said. They could make you go to a mental hospital and commit you, or a treatment type of facility. So that is the law we talked about at the beginning of this video. Maybe you're gravely disabled or persistently or acutely disabled. A judge can order you into treatment. And the third option is appoint a guardian. They can release you, and yes, even as an adult, you can have a guardian in charge of you. Next thing is insanity. If you're following along in the reading packet, it's page 74. Look, I even have the painting The Scream by Edvard Munch. He was trying to depict insanity, the German artist. Well, anyway, 4 things about insanity. What it means, first of all, and then the 4 things. It's not competency. Competency is here and now. Right at this moment, can you defend yourself with an attorney? But insanity refers to at the time of the crime. The moment that the crime happened, did you know it was wrong? Could you control your actions? And do you even know what you're doing and understand what you're doing? That's a matter of self-control. Well, if a judge decides that you don't have those 3 things, they can rule that you are insane. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. In 1834, this first occurred with Daniel Macnaghten in England, not in the United States. England, of course, later became Great Britain, but that's another story. Daniel Macnaghten tried to assassinate the British Prime Minister. He missed, but killed someone else, the Prime Minister's assistant. So it's still murder, even if it's not of a famous person. Well, the judge decided that Daniel McNaughton was so mentally ill that he had a disease of the mind and did not know right from wrong. 9 years later, this first occurred in the United States, and it was called the irresistible impulse decision. It was the state of Ohio where this occurred. A man killed his wife, and the judge ruled that he couldn't control himself. Irresistible impulse. Not guilty by reason of insanity started right there. Well, this was a law in every state until one by one the states started to change their laws. In Arizona, it wasn't until 1996 that our law changed, where it became guilty except insane. Think of the two words, not guilty. That means that you could even kill someone and not have to go to prison, because they determined at the moment you committed the crime, well, you were insane, even if you're feeling better now. Temporary insanity. The law changed in Arizona almost a quarter century ago because of some high-profile cases that even made true crime TV shows. So now we have guilty except insane. Even if you were insane at the moment you committed the crime, you can still be held responsible. We're almost done. Couple more quick things. Criminal profiling is the next topic. Criminal profiling is what John Douglas talks about in the book that you're reading. And it's also why I'm assigning you a case as soon as you contact me and ask for that case, because those will be on the final. Not only what is profiling, but your cases will be on there as well. Not all of them, but a lot of them will. I think 15 out of the 25 in this class will be on the final exam. Well, anyway, let's get started on profiling. It was started in the 1970s, late 70s, and actually early 80s with the Atlanta child murders case. A serial killer was killing young black boys and teenagers, and they couldn't figure out who it was. Well, John Douglas, along with his colleague Roy Hazelwood, came up with this system to figure out what kind of person would commit a crime. So, a few things I want you to know. Not who did it, what kind of person to look for. I would highly recommend you go into the modules and watch the first 18 minutes of the American Justice video about this. Two of my favorite people, Bill Curtis, the true crime narrator for a whole bunch of shows, and John Douglas is in it too. So, you look for the MO, the modus operandi. In English, method of operation. How did this person do it? A strangulation, a shooting, a suffocation, a stabbing? How did they even get into the place to harm this person or rob the place or set the fire in the first place? Second thing is the signature. Most criminals do things that do not need to be done. A famous case is Kenneth Bianchi. He's still alive, but he was the hillside strangler in California, and he would not only strangle women to death, he would pose their bodies to taunt the police. That part of it is totally unnecessary to commit the crime. That is a signature. So John Douglas says, look at the signature more than the modus operandi. How come? Because criminals will change their MO, their modus operandi, if they feel like they're about to get caught. You break a window and someone hears it and calls the police, well, next time I'm going to break through the door. That's just an example, of course. Criminals will change their MO, but not usually their signature. So, next thing. To do a profile, you have to gather evidence, usually at the crime scene, analyze it, decide what is important about it, and then write up a report. Last page of this section is MOM. This is on page 77. What do we mean by that? Well, MOM is an acronym for means, opportunity, and motive. First, we have to determine in a profile, did the person have the ability to do it? The means. So, if a large body of a victim was somehow transported out of the crime scene and into the area where the person was dumped, and you realize the suspect had a truck, well, that makes sense, doesn't it? That's how they transported the victim. Opportunity. Do we know that the person was not at work or school that day? The person was not only in town, but in the neighborhood? Opportunity. And motive. Most crimes have a motive. There is a reason why someone wants someone else dead, or to harm them, or burn down their house, or whatever it is we are talking about. By the way, that will be a test question from the previous section. The most common motive, revenge. You want to get back at somebody for one reason or another. Okay, last thing, means, motive, and opportunity. Or that's in the wrong order, huh? Means, opportunity, and motive. Last thing, the Zodiac Killer is one of the most well-known serial killers who was never caught, despite the fact they've done FBI profiles on what kind of person they're looking for. Well, after the fact, it has never been solved. The last part of your reading packet is an example of a competency evaluation I did a few years ago. Changed the name on it, but still, that will show you how those work, and that is Appendix A. So that is it. The next thing is a video about how to go about looking at everybody's criminal profile so that you will do well on the final. Take care.